Nano Machine by Hanjo Leolia. Chapter 452. Demon God vs. God of the East. Part 1. The man in the bamboo hat was amazed at the powerful energy he felt from the north. There was no human who could deal with that thing. Even if it was one of the best in Wulin, they would still fail. How are they still fighting? He thought that the one facing that thing would be dead. Its power grows stronger as time goes by, but it hasn't yet reached the apex of its power. He knew it better than anyone as he competed with it once every 10 years. Is there a person who can deal with it? Such a person would be close to the apex like himself. Anxiety crept over the man. He was worried that that person might reappear with time. Fat. Finally, he reached the area where the battle was taking place. If it was that, then it was definite that the people would be killed on the spot. Whoa! The man in the bamboo hat moved high in the air. He stopped in the air and focused his eyes on the place where two people were fighting. Huh? However, it wasn't that person who was competing. If it isn't him, how is he being cornered? Ah! In the eyes of the man in the bamboo hat, he saw black energy rise from the sword of the man competing with that thing. The vicious energy wasn't internal energy. He absorbed a spirit beast. Now he understood. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to compete with it. The purpose of the one with the black energy's visit was clear. He's aiming for the spirit beast. He couldn't let him enter. Other than the man with long hair, the other people didn't seem that tough to handle. That was what he thought. Lord. He used Void Punch twice, but the energy didn't go down. If the man was indeed hit, then his energy should have at least fluttered, but instead, it rose. What? Black energy rose in the dust. The man in the bamboo hat waved his hand, trying to clear the dust and see his opponent. One hand was outstretched, and a large invisible sword blocked the attack like a shield. He blocked it both times? The man was in shock. After 20 years, he found a man who stopped his attack twice. And with an invisible sword too. I see, a divine master. Since he blocked the punch, the man was indeed experienced. Phew. Chen Yuan's eyes narrowed. Even when he was dealing with the one in black, all he had to do was use his energy, but this time he had to create an invisible sword to defend himself. You're the same as me. The man in front of him was a divine master too. He also reached the end of the divine master level. It was his first time experiencing a warrior who could do such things. And no mistake. He is. After confirming that his grandson was safe, Chun Enji, who felt relieved, looked at the man in the bamboo hat with a firm expression and said, God of the East, Arkwui. He was a man who reigned as one of the 5 strongest warriors, with just his fists. There were rumors going around for a long time that he was the best in the world, but he never thought that the man would be so strong. A thrilling master who made everyone feel inferior. Does such a person exist? Mara Kim and Dan Jushin, who were nearby, had the same reaction. The two looked at the man in the bamboo hat with trembling eyes. In the mountain, the only person who could deal with their lord head-on was that person. 2 gods have gathered at one place. The meeting of 2 of the 5 strongest warriors who had the word God in their titles. The bamboo hat man, who judged that Chen Yuan wasn't an easy opponent, increased his energy. Goo. Quack. What energy? At his energy, the lower-leveled warriors of the cult staggered as the air became heavy for them. They felt as if their bodies were trapped. Even Ko Wanger and the other superior masters felt the same way. That monster. He was someone who could crush the crowd with just his energy. It was no exaggeration to say that he blocked the 5,000 troops of the Yulin all alone. If he had such strength, not just blocking, he could annihilate them too. Everyone looked at those two with tensed faces. Chen Yuan opened his mouth. The fact that you threw a fist at me twice means that you have no intention of conversing, right? If there was no hostility, he would have tried to talk first. However, he attacked twice, without even knowing if the man was an opponent or not. But, contrary to their expectations, the man opened his mouth to answer. DRRR. The man underneath his hand trembled. Even before being attacked by him, the man in black was undergoing mutation, and now he returned to his original state. As the man in the bamboo hat took 3 steps back, the man in black stood up. Ugh! Bastard! How dare you crush me? He grumbled with a voice full of displeasure as he looked at the man in the bamboo hat, making the latter point his finger at the mountain. You're the one who tried to break the oath first. Go back now. At that, he shouted. I'll do what I cough. A handful of blood gushed out of the man in black's mouth. He thought that it was an internal injury caused by the man in the bamboo hat crushing him, but it wasn't that. The man made a face as if he couldn't understand something. He thought that his body was restored to its original state. Aren't the wounds healed? The 23 slashes he sustained had completely regenerated. However, the parts where he was hit were still throbbing. Looking at Chen Yuan, he grunted. Step. I knew it, you bastard. You absorbed the core of a fallen spirit beast. Fallen spirit beast? Chen Yuan frowned at the unfamiliar words. All he did was use the sky demon force of all 4 chis he had. What do you mean by fallen? How dare you ask me that? At Chen Yuan's question, the man took a step towards him with a malicious grin, but the man in the bamboo hat stopped him by grabbing his shoulder. Stop. If you don't take your hand off my shoulder, I'll cut off your fingers and throw them away. It was strange. The man had the ability to do what he said. However, despite the threat, the man didn't let go. If you don't drive out that energy, you won't be able to fulfill the oath. Does that not matter to you? Startle. The man's eyebrows rose at the word oath. It was as if the word oath was a kind of restriction. Pack. The man shook off the hand on his shoulder roughly and mumbled while calming his anger. Damn you bastard. Instead, I will definitely kill you. After those words, he glanced at Chen Yuan and moved to Changbai Mountain in anger. But there was no way Chen Yuan would leave him alone. Chen Yuan's question wasn't answered, and his identity was unknown. When Chen Yuan tried to move, the man in the bamboo hat stopped him. Bang! At that, Chen Yuan took a step ahead. At that moment, as if ripples could exist on the ground, Een soared around, creating frost on the ground. JRRK. A huge rock rose from the ground and blocked the man who was heading towards the mountain. The eyes of the man who barely managed to hold back his anger turned red. You arrogant jerk. Did you block me with ice? Ice could be broken right away. He pulled out his sword and attacked it at once. Clang! What is this? The ice which should have broken didn't break. Rather, the long sword bounced off of it. The man couldn't even understand what was happening. Bang! He hit the ice with his fists. What's wrong with the ice? The ice swords which were created before weren't that strong. However, this ice rock was very hard, as if it was stone. Not natural. Unlike the ice swords, this ice rock was made up of the essence of the ice cold of heaven technique, and it had the strength to capture even a spirit beast in it. That bastard. He absorbed a core, but is he really a human? If I don't transform my body, I won't be able to wake up. Trickle. In addition, the last attack of Chen Yuan was interfering with his movements. He could have moved away from the ice, but he wanted to destroy it and then move. It was then he felt energy from behind. Huh? When he turned around, Chen Yuan had his sword stretched out. I never said I'll let you go. Swash! The large invisible sword that stood like a shield in front of Chen Yuan a moment back now aimed at him. But... Whoa! The man in the bamboo hat blocked the sword as he moved his hand and rotated it before sending it down. He stopped the invisible sword? And that wasn't the end. Quang! When the man pushed the sword to the ground trembled. In a short time, he realized that only if the yin was constantly being released would the rigidity of the stone be maintained. Hurry! TCH! The man in black frowned at the words of the man in the bamboo hat and stepped on the ice, and jumped away. Fat! Who said you could? When Chen Yuan raised his hand, numerous ice swords appeared in the air. And as he tried to release them, the man in the bamboo hat moved, extending his fist towards Chen Yuan. Pang! The sound of air being ripped could be clearly heard. This? It looked like a light punch, but it wasn't. The fist stretched out a lot, and its effect and power didn't reduce. It was as if a raging volcano exploded. As we reach the end of the Divine Master level, we focus on the capabilities of the effectiveness of one thing rather than useless techniques. You can't stop me with those clumsy moves. Once he was done, no one would be able to stand in front of him properly. Unlike the previous punch, this one was difficult to respond to. If the young man was really a divine master, then the difference between him and the young man should be felt. Smiling? Chen Yuan, who should have been shocked, was smiling. And something unique happened. A ferocious black invisible sword was born in Chen Yuan's hand, and all 24 forms of the sword art of the demon god aimed at one point. The man in the bamboo hat realized it. The unification that took him several decades was already being unfolded by the young man in front of him. In an instant, the sword in his hand, which unfolded, all aimed for one point. Quang! As if a bomb had exploded, the strength of the two rattled the place around them. The aftermath of it was the members of the demonic cult being pushed away. Swoosh! What kind of aftermath? Yuk! Some bounced off. The capabilities of the combatants were overwhelming the other warriors. When the dust fell, a large pit with a 5-foot radius formed where the two attacks collided. Lord? The cultists checked to see if their lord was okay. As the dust moved, the figure standing in the center was Chen Yuan. A haze-like smoke rose from Chen Yuan's upper body as if it was driving away the opponent's energy. He moved 3 steps back, and there seemed to be several clashes. Did our lord hit him? Ah. They found the man 10 steps away. His face was revealed under the torn bamboo hat. He was a middle-aged man with pure white hair and a strong face. A haze rose from the middle-aged man's chest too. Looking at the blood running down his lip, he must have suffered internal injuries. Shoo! The man wiped off the blood with his sleeve. He was unable to move for an instant. I tried to suppress it immediately because the technique seemed poor, but I got pushed back by the counterattack. This was what happened in the short time of the exchange. As Chen Yuan's sword came for him, he tried to kick Chen Yuan's right shoulder. Chen Yuan, who avoided it, hit the man in his upper body. Pupuk. No? He thought that Chen Yuan would be thrown away when his punch reached him, but his fist began to turn cold. In his moment of hesitation, Chen Yuan's sword pierced his chest. As a result, he got pushed back 10 steps. His energy is impossible to understand. He's hard to push. He figured it out in the short exchange of blows. SRRR. Chen Yuan, who had driven out the energy of the middle-aged man which was digging into his body, looked at him. He is able to unify all his energy and concentrate on executing it perfectly? It was admirable. Chen Yuan understood that. The sword art of the demon god was based on the sword force of the sky demon. It was given the right to move freely. Every single blow aims for death. This man in front of Chen Yuan was the toughest opponent he ever met. It was no exaggeration to call him the strongest. To become that strong without a core, he is a great person, even if he is an enemy for now. Chen Yuan's energy, which was increased as he obtained 4 cores, exceeded the man's. However, the middle-aged man in front of him, who hadn't taken a single core and reached this level, was commendable. How long did he practice to achieve that level? Maybe he was a person with talent. To some extent, they managed to understand each other. The man relaxed and walked. It has been a long time since I fought properly. He clenched his fists and spoke, taking out his energy properly. It would be unfair for me to not use my full strength against a warrior like you. It's the first time in several decades that I've had to use the void punch. Chen Yuan too acknowledged his opponent. And the man accepted him, not as an uninvited guest to the mountain, but as a true opponent. Goo. Energy rose in both fists of the man, who warned. From now on, lose a little concentration, and you'll die. It has been a long time since he fought properly, so he wanted to use all his skills. That was what his warning meant. At that, Chen Yuan responded. Those words. Right back at you. As soon as that was done, the space around Chen Yuan shook, and his energy began to condense. 3 invisible swords were created in an instant. All 3 had different attributes. Crackle. JJJJK. Flare. They were the Black Thunder Chi Sword, the Black Ice Chi Sword, and the Black Flame Chi Sword. Completely different from ordinary sword Chi. As Chen Yuan slightly moved his hand, the 3 swords aimed for the opponent. A little carelessness, and you'll die. God of the East. The warning held no ounce of a lie. Hiding the power, we both were doing the same. Tension stood in the eyes of God of the East, who saw 3 attributed swords raging with energy. Chapter 453. Demon God versus God of the East. Part 2. Does that mean that what he showed this old man wasn't his full power? Seeing the 3 invisible swords floating around Chen Yuan, the former Lord Chen Yinji couldn't help but marvel. The invisible swords themselves were surprising, but to create invisible swords, all with different attributes, was something else. The attributes were Thunder Chi, Flame Chi, and Ice Chi. I knew that he absorbed the cores, but is it possible for one body to handle so many different attributes at the same time? Under normal circumstances, it was absolutely impossible. However, it was the Sky Demon energy that made it possible. The energy taken in from the Imugi was the Sky Demon energy, and it was pivotal. That energy was what made the 3 different attributes harmonize. This confrontation will truly decide who is the best. Among the other 5 strongest warriors, no one could defeat the demon god. And if the God of the East was taken down, then Chen Yuan would truly be the strongest in the world. But that wouldn't be an easy task. Even before the former Lord, Chen Yinji became one of the 5 strongest warriors, the God of the East had maintained his position. And no one faced him. Be careful. Yuan. As cheering was all he could do, he tried his best in that. The 2 were facing each other with their full power, not a single person moved. There was a saying that true masters fight invisible battles through their vision. Chen Yuan and the God of the East's eyes constantly moved as if they were busy looking at each other's truth. After taking the attack, his openings are completely gone. The God of the East's form had become perfect. It was difficult to find one spot which could be attacked. But even the God of the East was the same. Those swords are dangerous. It was his first time seeing invisible swords with attributes. In addition, each attribute seemed to be mixed with that vicious black energy. Maybe what he did before couldn't stop them. This is something I haven't felt in a long time. The greatest advantage of the martial void fist was its perfect defense. And if that defense didn't work, the battle would be difficult. In the confrontation of vision, it was the god of the East who moved first. Fat. If I handle the 3 swords properly, it will be like handling 3 different masters. If that's the case, the answer is to stay close and not give him any gaps. The god of the East, who concluded his thoughts, quickly moved 3 steps closer to Chunyoan. The space twisted as he raised his fist. Pang! At the same time, as if he controlled the wind, pressure rose, and it struck Chunyoan. This is wind. However, Chunyoan moved his right hand lightly. The invisible sword with black ice chi rotated and protected Chunyoan from the oncoming tornado. That wasn't the end. As Chunyoan stretched his left hand forward, the black thunder chi sword penetrated the center of the tornado and moved towards the god of the East. Crackle. That looks like thunder chi. The wind was used as a diversion. If Chunyoan had only focused on blocking the tornado with his ice sword, the god of the East would have hit him directly. He noticed? As his idea failed, the god of the East moved his left hand in a circle. With the space twisting, the thunder chi sword which rushed for him collided with it. Pang! A cracking sound echoed. With that, the black thunder chi sword couldn't move any further and stopped. It was blocked. Unlike any normal invisible sword, it wasn't cancelled out, but rather it only stopped moving forward. If that was the case, then defending was easy. When the most fearful thing didn't happen, the god of the East felt relieved and tried to deliver another punch to Chunyoan. It was then, crackle. The black thunder chi sword, which he had managed to halt, pierced it and attacked him. Flustered, the god of the East stepped ahead. Grr. Fragments of the ground broke and rose up, blocking the approaching thunder chi sword. However, he had no choice but to retreat a couple steps back as the rocks, destroyed by the sword, were sent flying towards him. Is it impossible to stop them? The energy from the invisible sword was released, but not the lightning. He was trying to single out one sword by focusing on it with his capabilities, but if the sword could react as such, then it would be hard to block. Startle. This. The invisible black flame sword, which flew above him, came barreling towards him. This sword looked more ferocious. Blaze. The black flame chi sword moved in a splendid trajectory, and the sword came. It was coming in while unfolding the sword art of the demon god. Can invisible swords be used like this? He frowned as he looked at the sword acting on its own. The trajectory of the black flame chi invisible sword coming in wasn't something that could be prevented by distorting the space. This is nothing. Martial void punch. Void. Tada tada. As god of the East widened the distance, he moved his arms around. An invisible circle was born in the space where his hands touched, reproducing his previous technique. Blaze. Papa Pang. The black flame chi sword collided with the distorted space, causing lots of destruction. It was just 2 techniques colliding, yet the entire place was being ravaged. Tat attack. Wow. The god of the East got pushed back around 6 steps. By unfolding the void fist, he had to concentrate all his abilities into one point, and he managed to stop the sword from moving, but his defense ended up losing. Chunyoan too was a victim. Sting. Sting. Chunyoan frowned at the intense pain that ran through his hands. Is he focusing his capabilities with invisible energy? Thanks to that, the black flame chi and the black thunder chi swords collided and were destroyed, and the shock from it flowed back to him. However, Chunyoan's body, which absorbed 4 cores, was beyond perfect. All the internal wounds he received from the energy suddenly returning were quickly healed. There was no need for Nano to self-heal. Crackle. Again, invisible swords made of black thunder chi and black flame chi appeared. He still had plenty of internal energy. Drip. But that wasn't the case for the god of the East. Beads of sweat dripped down from his forehead, and his arms trembled. As he kept using the martial void fist, his internal energy was running out quickly, and on top of that, he was using up his mental ability by focusing his attacks at one point, and going against a man who was in the Divine Master level wasn't easy. HIA. At the sight of Chen Yuan, who seemed to be fine, the god of the East clicked his tongue. I'm in trouble. He could display the same energy as Chen Yuan in battle. However, he didn't possess the stamina that Chen Yuan had, which was why he was at a disadvantage. Does that mean that his internal energy isn't running out? It felt like he was dealing with a spirit beast. Unlike humans, spirit beasts belong to Mother Nature and never run out of power. Chen Yuan, who took in 4 cores, possessed a tremendous amount of energy that could be close to infinite. The god of the East shook his head at the thought. I have no other choice but to offer my flesh to take out his bones. Some sacrifice was inevitable to win. Determined, he threw a punch. Fat. The god of the East stretched his arm out towards him. This? Seeing him rushing in, Chen Yuan realized that his opponent wanted to win the battle with a final blow. Given the disadvantage that the god of the East had, it was a natural choice to make. Smash the 3 invisible swords simultaneously with the invisible fist, and then defeat him with the martial void fist. It was a simple tactic, but one which could cost him his life. When the invisible swords with different attributes were all concentrated on him, he had to overcome their force and the aftermath of each clash before Chen Yuan could react and take him down. I'm coming. Phew. He was ready to make sacrifices. His aim was the invisible swords, which suddenly rushed for him. But it felt strange. As he got closer to Chen Yuan, the 3 swords stopped moving. He didn't know what the trick was, but the closer he got, the more advantageous it was for the god of the East. Without unfolding the invisible fist, he could move on to the second step. That was until Chen Yuan opened his mouth. Thanks to you, I learned something good. He wondered what that meant, but the 3 swords suddenly aimed for him. What is he doing? The eyes of the god of the East trembled. Phew. Among them, the sword with the black thunder chi had energy concentrated on its tip. Chen Yuan, who was learning to unify the 24 forms at one point, was still trying to perfect it. And now, he intended to unfold it with an invisible sword with an attribute. DRRR. Chen Yuan's surroundings shook. When space trembled, tremendous energy that was strong enough to shake the earth was concentrated at one point. The god of the East, who wanted to take down Chen Yuan, had to abandon his plan to defend himself from the sword. I need to avoid getting hit. He knew that the sword couldn't be stopped anymore. It was the moment when he tried to widen the distance. Bang! Crackle! Dazzling light erupted from the black thunder chi sword, which roared like thunder. It seemed like a ray of lightning that would come out of a dragon's mouth. The black thunder chi sword looked like it wanted to destroy everything close to it. Quack quack wang. Its speed could be considered a flash, and the god of the East might not be able to avoid it. Quack. With his right fist, he tried out to bring out the martial void fist to not take damage. When he raised his fist, the space around trembled, causing ripples on the land. Whoa! At the same time, Chen Yuan's black thunder chi sword entered. Quack. Kook. As the 2 techniques collided, blood gushed out of God of the East's mouth. With the amount of energy, which was several times of his own, spreading out from the sword, he ended up taking damage. If he kept trying to endure the sword and its energy, he would be swept away and die. This is unreasonable. With all his energy, he raised his fist, which caused ripples. Wook. Quack. The price he had to pay was harsh. The bones and the muscles of his right hand twisted, making it tough for him to raise it. But thanks to that, the Black Thunder Chi sword, which was aiming for him, was deflected upwards. Growling, the Thunder Chi sword's lighting hit the mountain peak, which was behind him. Rumble. Rocks fell down from the mountain peak. A hole was drilled into it. The cultists who saw the confrontation couldn't help but be astonished at the amount of power the mountain peak got hit by. Oh my god. No, that is ridiculous. Through a mountain. It was monster-like power. The god of the east, who barely managed to escape from getting hit, grabbed his right shoulder and twisted it roughly. Ugh, pant. It wasn't really something a human could do. His eyes trembled as they looked at Chen Yuan, aiming his invisible black flame chi and the black ice chi swords at him. Indeed, you're great. Try stopping this too. I'll shoot them the same way again. What? At those words, the face of the god of the east turned pale. If the invisible swords, which had such capabilities, kept coming at him, that meant that his opponent still had a lot of energy to use.